Good morning, everyone. We are coming to you live via Facebook streaming, via YouTube streaming, and also via Skype online. Each one of you is welcome to this live streaming. Kundalini and questions session. There are certain questions which have been asked from time to time. In this session, I seek to respond to those. The first is sadhana or austerity or discipline of Kundalini psychic or spiritual? I repeat it again. Is austerity or discipline of Kundalini psychic or spiritual? It is just spiritual and nothing else. You know that eating is physical, but if you do not eat, the soul will leave the body soon. So although food goes into the body, goes through the process of digestion and everything, yet it is necessary that body can be in a particular state so that soul stays on. The same way Kundalini is psychic, it is necessary that Kundalini be in a particular state so that you can reach the soul. If Kundalini is not in a particular state, if it is different from what it should be for you, then there is no possibility for it to reach the soul. So although Kundalini is psychic, it serves the stepping stone to the spiritual. It is not spiritual in itself. And if somebody says that it is not spiritual in itself, it is not spiritual in itself, and if somebody says so, he is wrong. If somebody says that eating is spiritual, he is wrong. Eating is physical, but it serves as the basis for spiritual. So Kundalini is not spiritual in itself. Breath is material and thought too is material. Everything is material. Breath and thoughts are matter, really. But they are in their subtlest form, they are psychic. Psychic is the subtlest form of physical, of matter. Psychic is the subtlest form of matter. But all of them, breath and mind and psyche, serve as the basis for the seeker to take a jump into the spiritual. So all of them, breath, mind, psyche, they serve as a base for the seeker to take the jump into the spiritual. They serve as the jumping board to leap into the divine. It is like a man wants to dive in the river. And to do so, He first stands on the jumping board erected on the bank of the river or the swimming pool. The diving board is not the river. Now, someone can argue that since the board is not the river, then what it should be? Why should you be there, standing on it? Who wants to dive into the river? Stand on it. Why can't he stand in the river itself? But no one can stand in the river with a view to dive. One has to take a stand on the board first, then he can jump into the river, and board is absolutely different from the river into which one wants to dive, but it is an essential requirement to take a jump into the river. The board is not river. So it is through the body, through the mind, that you jump into the spirit, the soul, and the spiritual is attained only when jump has been made. For the present, you have to prepare for it from where you are at the moment. So the body and the mind are the jumping boards. However, when jump is made, you will reach the spiritual, then you do not need the jumping board. The second question, earlier it is said for meditation one has to be relaxed, still, silent and aware. But in the process of awakening of the Kundalini, with intense breathing and asking the question, who am I? You have to bring all your efforts into it. But a seeker who has practiced earlier technique of meditation will find it difficult to put in sustained efforts. So which of the two techniques would be good for him? The silent, relaxed, aware meditation, or intense breathing and asking the question, who am I? There is no question of good and bad here. Your point is understood. It is not a question of being good or bad. You have to find out which of the two techniques give you more peace and add to the momentum of your meditation. It cannot be the same for everyone. Each one of you will have to experience it in a different way. There are people who attain relaxation only after they run themselves into the ground. And there are others who can go into relaxation instantaneously. But there are few and far between. It is rather difficult to move straight into the silence. Only handful of the people can go into it. For majority of the people, it is necessary to go through a lot of exertion and tension before you can relax. If you have gathered too much dust in order to relax, you have to take a shower. But the purpose, whether you are going into the silent or you are going through the exertion, the purpose in both cases is the same. The final objective is the same. It is relaxation. For instance, as soon as I put my head on the pillow, I fall asleep next moment. Even when I wake up in the night, and some people find it difficult to go to sleep, but as I put my head on the pillow, I am asleep the next moment. If there is no disturbance, relaxation becomes easier. If there is disturbance, means distortion, there is chaos within. In order to remove that, you have to do the exertion. But the purpose is relaxation. Next question. Explaining deep and fast breathing. It is said it is the technique for transformation through the extremes. Deep and fast. We have to go through this extreme point of tension, so an absolute state of relaxation is achieved. In the end, if it is so, should one start the discipline of austerity or sadhana, or the discipline of tension? I repeat the question. You want a master to be consistent. He is not. A particular thing is said in a particular context and at a certain time. Maybe it is said to a particular seeker. That does not mean that it will be right in all the circumstances and situations. For instance, I returned home from work and I am hungry. I say that I am hungry. So there were two people who heard it. The first one brought something that was available. The second was doing something. So that person went and finished the work. And after the work was finished, she prepared something and brought it. And I said, I am not hungry. So the person says, you are always inconsistent. One moment, some time ago, one moment you said you are hungry, now you said you are not hungry. But in between, when I said I am hungry and you brought the food, someone else brought something for me to eat. So I am not hungry now. Every discipline, every sadhana is a every discipline of energy. When you have to discipline the energy, it is a discipline of tension. Energy itself means tension because there is a constant movement. It is through tension that energy comes into being. When you rub your palms vigorously, if you just do it so, nothing will happen. If you rub it vigorously, the heat is generated. Heat is energy. The energy is generated through friction. Friction is tension. Energy itself means tension. It is through friction, it is through energy, tension that energy comes into the being. We succeed in creating tremendous amount of energy from the atom, because if we split it into two, and put its most subtle component in a state of tension. So the whole discipline of energy is a discipline of tensions. If we understand this clearly, rightly, you will know tension itself is energy. Tension itself is energy. Next question. You talk of the system of sadhana or austerity that is positive and negative. Is Kundalini positive or negative austerity or sadhana? It is absolutely positive. Buddha never talked about Kundalini and the centers of chakras that it passes through. This is the question. Why did Buddha not talk about Kundalini and the chakras through which it has to pass through? In fact, all of what Buddha said was not recorded. That is the biggest difficulty in the matter. Many things from the teachings of Buddha were not recorded deliberately. And then his teachings were recorded a full 500 years after Buddha passed away. Remember this. They were not recorded in his lifetime. 500 years after, monks, the disciples of Buddha who were in possession of his teachings, refused to reduce them into writings. Then came a time when these custodians of Buddhist knowledge themselves began to disappear from the earth. And so a large Sangh, Congress of Buddhists, were convened, and it was that Congress that decided to record Buddha's teachings for the first time, because there was a danger of their being lost completely after the last of the monks who were in possession of them were no more. As long as Buddha's teachings could be preserved orally through memory, his disciples stubbornly refused to reduce them into writing. The same thing happened with the teachings of Jesus and teachings of Mahabir. And it is necessary to do so for certain reasons. There were good reasons for teachings, why the teachings of Buddha and men like him were not recorded. Firstly, these people had been teaching through the words of mouth. So, it is their spoken words that comprise of his teachings. Among them, many different things were said for many kinds of seekers. And all of them were not necessarily useful for the beginners of spiritual discipline. They could have been harmful for them. When a master speaks in general to a congregation, not everything he speaks is meant for everyone. All of a sudden, the master looks at a disciple. The two eyes merge into one another. The drop merges in the ocean. He says a sentence. That disciple knows that it is for him. Others will not be able to understand it. So there were good reasons why teachings of Buddha and men like him, Jesus and Mahavir, were not recorded. Firstly, these people had been teaching through the word of mouth. So it is their spoken words that comprise the teachings of Buddha, Jesus and Mahavir. Among them, many different things were said for different set of people. And all of them were not necessarily useful for the beginners of the spiritual discipline. They could have been harmful for them. It happens often enough that when teachings meant for advanced seekers are passed on to those behind them, they only make the position unsteady for learners, because then they are seized with the idea of getting to the advanced stages, which in turn makes them ignore their homework. So there are different sessions. Often it happens often enough that when teachings meant for advanced seekers are passed on to those who are behind them, they only make their position unsteady. Like, I am speaking to a student as a professor. You are speaking to PhD students, and all of a sudden an undergraduate comes and sits down and listens to what you had been speaking to the PhD scholar. He is lagging behind. He has not finished his homework. He has not reached to the state that he can understand the symbols in which you are speaking to the PhD scholar. And that advanced teachings will make the position of the learners unsteady, because they are now seized with the idea of getting to the advanced stages, but they have not finished the work. To someone who is expert in the art of culinary, a certain hints are given, because the person has done already the groundwork, knows everything. So many steps are skipped. But you need the basic steps. There is yet another difficulty in this respect. Many things taught to the beginners become not only redundant, but even false for advanced seekers. Many things that are taught to the beginners become not only redundant, but useless for an advanced seeker. To an advanced seeker of culinary, cut this carrot and juliennes. That's all. Now you want to know what is julienne? Because you are yet a learner. And then at that time, in that class, the culinary expert start teaching the juliennes how to make the juliennes. Then that will not be useful for the advanced seekers. So if the beginners come to know things taught to the advanced students, advanced learners too soon, they will not take their own lessons seriously, what they are supposed to do. They will forget what they are supposed to do, and they are jumping to the advanced sessions, advanced teachings. And in that event, they will get stuck. They cannot advance further. The things have to go in steps. In order to reach the ladder, you have to use each step. If someone is standing on the 7th rung of the ladder, you have not yet gone up the ladder. So when you see in one step the person who is on the 7th rung reaches the top of the roof, you want to be like him. So if the beginners come to know things that are taught to these advanced learners too soon, they will not take their basic home lessons seriously and trustfully. And in that they will get stuck. They cannot advance further. It is therefore very necessary for the teachings to be true for them at their own stage. Then only they can rightly learn, make progress in a spiritual discipline and continue to move forward. When a child is learning his alphabet and is taught G for God, now it has no meaning to say so. G can belong to gold, G can be for goblin, and there is no relation between God and goblin, God and gold. They do not belong to the same fraternity. In fact, G has no connection whatsoever either with God or gold or goblin. But it would be dangerous to say it to a child learning his alphabet. His father teaches him, "You fool, G has nothing to do with God." If the teacher teaches him, "You fool, G has nothing to do with God. G belongs to 1,001 things as well. It is a letter of the alphabet. It does not belong to God exclusively." Then this child will never learn, will never get alphabet G. It is therefore necessary for the present he should only be told G belongs to God, A belongs to apple, U belongs to umbrella. Leave aside 1,000 and other things associated with it It would be enough if he learns G in association with God. Later on, he will also learn other things that will be necessary for him. And with God, it is connected with many. As it is connected with God, it is connected with many other worlds. And then God will drop and he will know the letter G independently. This is how it goes. So in a spiritual discipline, there are 1,001 things belonging to 1,001 levels. Each student is at a different level. What I am telling to X may not be useful for B. Then there are few things which are very personal and secret and esoteric. The meditation that I have been teaching you now is such that it can be talked about publicly, but there are things that cannot be discussed in amidst the large audience. I will not talk about them. In general, they can be talked only with a few chosen individuals. It used to happen. Every Saturday, because Saturday the college was closed. My uncle's office in India that time, Saturday was a half day. So he will come back from the work, and right outside my room there was a veranda where he will sit down on his desk. So when I see him sitting down, I will come and sit down on the floor. So he is looking through his mails, writing, or doing whatsoever he is doing, but I am sitting down. This is an individual session. So the master will not speak. What it is meant for chosen few amidst a large audience. So although Buddha had said a lot, all of it is not recorded. In the same way, not everything that I say will be recorded. All of it cannot be reduced to writing. Firstly, I will say only that much publicly which can be recorded without any risk. Publicly, I will say only that much, and that which needs to be treated and preserved as the secret teachings will never be disclosed to the large audience, to the public. I will transmit them to the deserving students who will save them in their memory. This is how it goes on. Next question. Does it mean that the matter of Kundalini and different chakras should be treated as secret and not recorded for all? No. There are many other things involved in it. There should be no difficulty in recording what I have said here. And through these responses to these questions, there is no difficulty whatsoever. My difficulty is there is a gap of 2500 between Buddha and our times. It has made a great difference. Over the period of time, man's consciousness has grown. I now think there are many things that Buddha thought should remain hidden that can now be made public. 25 centuries have made a basic difference. So I can say that a great many of the things that Buddha thought to be secret can now be taught openly. Similarly, a great many things that I consider to be secret can be revealed another 2500 years after I am no more, provided man's consciousness continues to evolve the way it should. Do you follow what I am saying? Even if Buddha comes back now, he would like to reveal many things he had held back from his times. If Jesus comes back, the same thing will happen. Buddha did one thing of great understanding and importance. He has decided on 11 questions that no one was allowed to put to him. 11 questions that no one was allowed to ask to him. Because if any of them were put to him, he would have to answer them in some way or the other. And while it was not proper to give a wrong answer to them, it would have been absolutely wrong to give right answers. So he has decided on 11 questions that were prohibited because they were unexplainable. Before Buddha entered a town, he would publicly announce that no one should put these 11 questions to Buddha, for he would not answer them. So the announcement has to say no one should embarrass Buddha from asking these questions. There was a good reason for Buddha to have refused to answer them. It would have been harmful if he had answered them. And if he refused to answer them, he would feel guilty that he was suppressing the truth. So the best way was that these questions should not be asked. So every village was informed by the beat of the drum that Buddha was visiting them, and they would not put him those 11 questions because it would amount to embarrassing him. These questions were treated as unexplainable questions, and they were not raised really. One never put them to Buddha. And whenever an opponent of his insisted on putting it, Buddha would say to him, wait for some time, do some sadhana. In the meantime, and when you will be deserving of it, I will answer your question. This is what he told Sariputra. When Mahakashyap came in the company of Buddha, Let us not go into the names. A new monk came. He had questions. Buddha told him, you have to remain around me for 1 year. And after that, if I want to respond to your question, I will. If not, you cannot force him. Another monk was sitting under the tree and he began to laugh. He said, 1 year ago I also came here with the similar questions and the same thing Buddha told me. And now, after 1 year being in his company, I have no more questions. So Buddha would say to him, wait for some time, do some sadhana, and in the meantime, and when you will be deserving of it, I will answer your question. But he never answered really. And this is what his critics and opponents used against him. Jains and Hindus alleged that Buddha did not answer these questions just because he did not know the answers. They also said, since their own scriptures has answered to them, it seemed that Buddha was lacking in knowledge. But his critics forgot that it was so easy for Buddha to have repeated the scriptural answers, if he wanted to answer them. The truth is that right answers are not written even in the scriptures. They are not possible really. So the question should not arise why Buddha did not speak about Kundalini and Chakra. Truth is, the right answer can never be written, and right answer is not written in the scriptures. That is why the company of a living master is the only scripture. Truth is that right answer is not written even in the scriptures. It is not possible to write the right answer in the scriptures. With this, the short session on Kundalini, Shaktipat, grace and questions relating to Kundalini comes to an end. At this epoch, when we reach to the higher level, scale of consciousness, if it be necessary, I'll speak again. But that will be from a different altitude. At the moment, this is all for now. From next week, there are certain questions which needs attention. Until then, take care and do have a pleasant day.